Ready to start.
We're ready to start.
Okay, hi everybody. Whoa. Let's see. I like to see you guys, not me. So I'm gonna.
You can put it on your gallery.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Okie dokie. So good morning, everybody in England. Good middle of the day, everybody here in Eretz Yisrael. Good early morning. Yesterday we had someone from the Caribbean who came on. Somebody from England who's visiting the Caribbean right now. So she was Mazaka the whole Caribbean world over there with her Torah, with our Torah. Okay, so we're going to continue today and maybe next week also. We'll do a few more classes on the Hebrew name, your Hebrew name, and its significance to you in your life, the significance to those of you who are still having children and choosing names, and the significance of all different parts of our name. Okay, so last week we learned that we have categories. You can have a biblical name, you can have a name of an object, you can have an adjective name, you can have a made-up name. There are all kinds of names, and they're all accepted in Jewish law in the following way. If you could use that name in a ketubah, in a marriage contract, then that's the name then that's an acceptable Hebrew Jewish name. A lot of names can be written in Hebrew letters. So anyone who has a question about the authenticity of their name or the validity of their name, so you're more than welcome to ask. You can ask, I'm not a posek. I have access to poskim, and you can also ask the poskim, the rabbis in your neighborhood. What I want to talk about today a little bit, I want to start talking about a little bit the letters of your Hebrew name. So last week we spoke about that if you're named after someone in Tanakh, then your life's project is going to be right now to study that person and to see how in different parts of your life you will indeed manifest certain of the events of the person that you're named for in Tanakh. Even if you're named for your grandma, Sarah, but really you're named for Sari Imenu, because back, that first name was given to Sari Imenu. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be kidnapped by Paro and you have to go through all of the, the adventures that our precious grandmother Sarah went through. But it means that, yes, you have to keep your eyes open to see when there are situations in your life that you can parallel or that you can make a connection between Sari Imenu and her qualities and her avoda and whatever happened to her and what's going through in your life. Yes, you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to see parallels. However, don't think that it's the exact same. The commentaries tell us that because our grandparents went through what they went through, we do not have to go through what they went through. We don't have to go through the same thing. We don't have their power as they were great souls. We don't have the capacity. Our souls are not as big, so to speak, as theirs. But so we don't have to go through what they went through, but we can see parallels, number one. Number two, we can try to imitate. So if you're a Sarah, then you're going to try to imitate the good qualities of Sari Imenu, and you're going to try to pay attention if there's anything in the Sari Imenu story that you think is something that you have to be careful about, etc. So that's if your name is a biblical name. And if you have two biblical names, Chana Sarah, then you have to learn about Chana and you have to learn about Sarah. And you have to see how sometimes you're actually going through a situation that's similar to a Chana story, sometimes a Sarah story. Rosh Hashanah would be your holiday because both Chana and Sari Imenu Yeshua had special salvation on Rosh Hashanah. So there's a lot to think about when you think about your name, what holiday you're associated with. For example, everybody knows my name is Rachel. So last week was Rachel Imenu's yahrzeit. And so that was an important day for me, even though Baruch Hashem, I'm still here. It's not my yahrzeit, Baruch Hashem, but it's my namesake. So it's a day that I have to pay attention to. Also, if your name is Sarah, then you have to pay attention to all the Abrahams in your life, to all the Yitzchaks in your life. You're not going to have too many Hagars or Avimelechs or Paros in your life, but there are certain parallel names that sometimes follow through. Again, I want to repeat again and again, don't think that you're Sari Imenu and that you have to go through Sari Imenu's life. But there are parallels that you can just make interesting, extrapolations from Sarah's life into your life, only for you to get strength, spiritual strength, to do the best that you can and to lift yourself up to the highest place that you can be. And by the way, everything I'm saying to you, once you finish with your name, then you have to do with your husband's name and your kids' names and your grandchildren's names, add forever and ever and ever. And everybody here knows that there are certain names that repeat in families, right? Your great-great-grandmother, then your grandmother, and then you, and right, there are names that repeat, and that's because people in the same family are connected on the level of soul, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes. And so the avoda that your great-great-great-grandmother Rachel did, you're finishing, or perhaps you're even gaining her, whatever her qualities that she worked on, you're gaining them, you're receiving part of them, and then you're going with that. So for example, if you had a Sarah, I see this Sarah Lizon. If you have a your name is Sarah, and you have your name for your grandmother, your great grandmother, who was a tremendous hostess of Machnis Orchim. She used to have guests all the time, and then your mom learned that, and then you learn. So if you've been brought up in a family where there are a lot of people around, Shabbos table is always big. Like you don't know what to do with a small Shabbos table. It's weird. You don't know how to cook for less than 20 people. So if that's how you were raised, then look at that. You didn't even have to work hard on that. It was just given to you, whether it was, nature or nurture, but you're used to cooking in big pots. You don't know how to cook in small pots. And that's why people now who are doing all these challah, I see Miriam is relating to that. So I see that, sometimes people, they're making challah and they have no guests for Shabbos, and they make challah every week. So all of a sudden they have like 5 pounds of challah. They have 6 or 7 giant challahs. Like, what are you going to do with it? And it's just you and your husband home. So you give it to your neighbor, you give it to your friend. Some people put it in the freezer, give it to the kids, whatever. People receive that as a spiritual inheritance. So you got that happens in your name also. It happens in your name. If you were named for a person, and that person for somehow has always been actualizing the name, then you receive that in your. It's just easy. It comes easier to you. Okay, and again, if you have a description name, so if your name is Tova, so you're not going to just be good, but you're also going to look at what does the Torah say about good? What is good? So Ein Tov Ela Torah. So you're going to know that a Tova has to be connected to the Torah. A Tova has to be connected to Gemilas Chasadim, doing good for other people, making them feel good. That's how you do your name. And again, it's nothing that I can tell you and summarize it. It's a life project for you. I can give you some hints, which books to look up, etc., but you have to do that work. If you have the name of an animal, then you know that Shlomo HaMelech told us that every single animal that Hashem created has a certain good quality and has a certain negative quality. So research what's the good quality of your animal name. Also, look at Perek Shira, because Perek Shira has different kinds of animals, and see what the Perek Shira says about. Anyway, that's a little bit of a review from last week, and it's a tremendous assignment. It's a lot of work for each person who's interested in this. There are certain people who are just not interested in this idea. It's okay. You don't have to be interested in everything. But if you are, then it's a never-ending process, and you have a notebook, or you have, that you're always writing in, or you're underlining, or whatever you have your. Right, I said last week that sometimes it's nice to give a birthday present to somebody and to write, make a very nice begin to write a little bit about their name, and then leave them lots of pages to write themselves and their own name and what they experience in life. And I also told you, I think maybe I didn't tell you this, that in olden days, the tzaddikim would give each other birthday presents of finding psukim with their friends' names in it, with the tzaddikim's names in it. And so, for example, we see, and they got this from the following teaching. The first parak in Tehillim, parak Aleph in Tehillim, starts with the word Ashrei. Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach ba'atzas r'shaim, etc. So Chazal tell us, if you look at the first word in Tehillim, Ashrei, which is, by the way, Chazal, the Gemara says that why did David HaMelech start the parak with Ashrei? Because Ashrei is one of the last words in the whole book of Devarim. When Moshe Rabbeinu is saying goodbye to the Jews, to us, he says, Ashrecha Yisrael, how lucky you are, Jewish people, Ashrecha. So since the Gemara says, since Moshe Rabbeinu ended the Chumash with one of the final words that he said was Ashrecha, so David HaMelech wanted a parallel and wanted to start his book with Ashrei. But look at Ashrei. Aleph is Abraham, first letter of Abraham. Shin is first letter of Sarah. That's the Aleph and the Shin. The Reish and the Yud is Rivka and Yitzchak, and Rachel and Yaakov. So in the word Ashrei, you have the letters, the initials of Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, and Rachel. You might say, where's Leah? Leah, after all, was David HaMelech's direct descendant. He was descended from Yehuda, which was from Leah. So if you read that pasuk, it says, Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach. Lo halach star is written at Lamed Aleph Hey Lamed Chaf. So Lamed Aleph Hey, Leah's name is actually written out in that first pasuk, not an initial, but her name is written out to give her kavod, because she was the direct ancestress of David HaMelech. So you see that you can find your name if you look for it hard enough. You'll find your name in Tehillim, etc. Maybe one day when Mashiach comes and we're all hanging around waiting for the Beis HaMikdash to open up, it's like 2:00 in the morning, and we're all in the old city, and we don't need sleep anymore. We're all hanging around, and we want to see our names in the Tehillim, so we'll all sit around and figure out how we can find our names in Tehillim. We'll ask all the tzaddikim to show us. They know it all by heart. Okay, today I want to talk a little bit about letters. Now, this is a little bit technical. Everybody has initials, right? You all know you have, let's say for an example, if your name is Yehudis, your first letter is a Yud and your last letter is a Tav. The first letter is called Rashi Tevot or Rosh Teva, first initial. But in Hebrew, we also have Sofei Tevot or Sof Teva, the final initial. And if you have two names, Chana, Sarah, so you have the first initial and the last initial of the first name, and then you jump to the second name, first initial and second initial of the last name. So you have 4 letters. By the way, it's good to have as few names as possible. If you're naming kids right now, if you're still in the parsha of naming kids, don't give them like 10 names. It's very it'll make their life a little bit complicated. So just give a good standard biblical 1 name or 1 or 2 max. We see that in Torah, nobody had more than 2 names. So in Tanakh. Anyway, so your initials, are significant. How do we know our initials our name is significant? Because we know this teaching that when you're saying the Shemona Esrei, the Amidah, the prayer, the standing prayer, and you're signing off, you're saying, before you step 3 steps back and you're signing off, you say a pasuk. It's a custom to say a verse, a pasuk, that begins with the first letter of your name and ends with the last letter of your name. And you know that if you go to the Art Scroll Siddur and you look in the back, it will show you a list of suggested names. Interestingly enough, I learned this directly from the Boston Rebbe, the previous Boston Rebbe, Zichrono Levacha. I went to him for a bracha years and years ago, and he asked me if I say the pasuk with my name, and I had no idea what he was talking about. This story goes back for over 40 years, and actually about 40 years. And he asked me, do I say in the Shemona Esrei the pasuk with my name? I had never heard about that. This in my siddur it didn't say that, and it was before Art Scroll came out. So he showed me that his siddur, the Boston siddur, the siddur that the Boston Hasidim use, he showed me that there's a list of names in the back you could pick. But he has a separate list for women's names and a separate list for men's names. Now, the Art Scroll Siddur does not have that. And I chose a pasuk from his siddur, which has in the women's section for my name. It was interesting. So the idea being that you can pick any pasuk. You don't have to pick only the Art Scroll pasuk. You can pick any pasuk that you have. Since the Art Scroll says these are suggested psukim, you can go through if you have another pasuk that you like that actually qualifies. The first pasuk, the first letter is the first letter of your name, and the last letter of that pasuk is the last letter of your name. So go for that. So why do we do that? Why do we say that? The Gemara says a very strange thing. The Gemara says that when a person goes to Shemayim, the Malach, the angel, asks you your name. And if you don't know your name, you're in big trouble. Then they take you to a court. They take you to court in Shemayim. What does that mean? So the easy way to explain that is to say that the name that the person has is the job of the person. And if you don't remember your Hebrew name, that means that probably you didn't fulfill your job in this world. Okay, we're not worried about things like that because we're so far at the end of time that we're trusting that Hashem is going to pass on that one. But there's an Indian of saying a pasuk, so the Boston Rebbe explained to me a more understandable for me reason. He said that if you know that you're going to be, let's say, if I know that I'm going to be sitting, giving class, let's say, right now I'm giving a class. So if I thought that the class was going to be anonymous, let's say I wasn't putting my face on and I wasn't putting my voice on, and it was just like, giving over information, but not necessarily referencing it to me, maybe I wouldn't be so careful with the class. I wouldn't be put so much time into it because I wouldn't think that I'm identifiable. But if I know that my name and my face and my picture is going out, then I have to make sure that what I'm presenting to you is something that I consider worthy and that I would associate myself with, my name with. So the Rebbe said to me, before you take 3 steps back in the Shemona Esrei, you want to tell God, who was it that just said this Shemona Esrei? Now, God knows, of course, who you are, and you know who you are. But when you sign off, it's like you're signing off, you're signing your name. I have hereby presented you, Hashem, with my Shemona Esrei, with my prayer. And I'm signing off, this is me. Then it will help you to concentrate more on your prayer. Because you know that in the end, you're going to be signing off on it. So you'll be more careful. That's what he told me. And that said, I felt that sat very well with me. I understood that more than the idea of an angel, asking me my name and I'm going to forget about it, which I hope I won't. Because if you can't remember your name, why are you going to remember your pasuk? A pasuk is much longer than your name. Okay, so that was a direct teaching, Torah Shabbat Peh, from the Boston Rebbe Zatzal, to me, not to you. We should all live long, and he should be a good debater for us in Shemayim. He was a very precious person. Okay.
Amen.
Okay, so let's talk about the letters in a person's name. So everybody here knows we take vitamin C, we take vitamin D, we take the B vitamins, we take zinc, we're taking all kinds of things now to keep our immune system strong. And each one of these vitamins has a different goal and a different strength in the body. Those Alzheimer's patients are interesting. They don't forget who they are in their soul. They just can't communicate because they don't need to do any more mitzvot. So their body wants to stay in the world because there's a very strong reason for a soul staying in a body in this world. It's a kapara. It's a atonement for many of the sins of the person from this life and from a past life. So if a person lo alechem has Alzheimer's or has memory loss, so that person is still alive, and they're gaining a purification of their soul by actually just simply being in the world, but they don't have to do mitzvot because their mind is not with them. So, but their soul is 100% aware and it doesn't forget anything. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why it's so important not to ever take someone off of life support. This is a very, very hot topic since just now in Nebuch in England, your terrible government, did what they did to that poor baby and that family, but you never allowed to take someone off life. Well, you can't take them off. Whether you have to put them on life support, that's a different shaila. But to take them off, you're not allowed to. That's killing them. And there's stories about people who never did that. And the person came back to them in a dream and said, "How could you do that to me? Why did you do that? I could have lived another few hours, another few days. I could have had a complete kapara, whatever." So that's the answer to your question about people who consciously don't have memory in this life, but if they're in a body, it just means that their soul is doing a different type of serving God. Sometimes they just allowed to live, to allow the people around them to have merit, to take care of them. There's a lot of reasons for all of those kinds of things. Okay, so let's talk about the letters of the person's name. So just like the vitamins, each vitamin has its, targets a different strength in the body. So too, every letter in the Hebrew alphabet has a different strength. It targets a different type of serving God. It targets a different type of energy. It involves it. It contains within it a different type of energy. An aleph is not like a bet, and a bet is not like a gimel, even though they can all make up a word, but each letter is completely unique. Even the final letters, a chaf and a chaf sofit, a chaf and a final chaf. It's the same sound, but they're different. They have different energies to them, etc. So every letter has a different energy. Now, maybe one day we'll do a whole series. It will take months and months to go through the Aleph Beis letters and to explain on whatever level we can the energy of every single letter. But your name is made up of letters, so it's not just that your name has a meaning. Sarah, it's the Sarah Imenu, and it means a princess, and it's connected to Rosh Hashanah, and it's connected to the Abrahams and the Yitzchaks, and also to all of the Jewish people. Not just that, but your name Sarah has a Shin energy and a Resh energy and a Hey energy. And everybody knows that Sarah's mazel changed because her name by given wasn't Sarah, it was Sarai. And so her mazel changed when she flipped the yud. She shared the yud, which is gematria, which is a numerical value of 10. Hashem split it into 2 5s, 2 hays, gave Abraham a hay, gave Sarah a hay. Took that yud and split it into 2 5s. Took the 10 of the yud, split it into 2 5s because hay is 5, and it changed their mazel. How does that work? Because the letters have different energies to them. Abraham was missing a hay, and Sarah had a yud instead of a hay. So the letters of a person's name, the Hebrew letters of the Hebrew name, have in them, every letter has an energy and a job. So for example, if you have a shin and a resh and a hey, so it could be that one day you're feeling very unmotivated and you need something to motivate you and nothing is doing it, then you can actually meditate on the letter shin in your name. Just think about a shin, or, if you go into a siddur and find the letter shin and just stare at it, look at it. And the energy of the shin, because shin is the energy of fire, eish, fire, that can actually have a positive effect on you. And one of the reasons, if you'll notice, the old-fashioned siddurim, the first page of every siddur has the Aleph Beis written out. Go look at if you have an old Tfilas Cold Pass siddur, or an old, I don't remember, Shiloh siddur, I forgot the names of the old siddurim, before Art Scroll. The first page is the Aleph Beis letters and the vowels. So there are a lot of reasons for that. But one reason is because you can actually meditate on the letters of your name before you daven. This is written in my siddur, in the siddur which is not an old siddur at all, meaning it's a contemporary Chassidish siddur. The Chelkas Yoshua, I like to use that siddur. I use a few siddurs when I'm davening, but that siddur I like because I like the way it's printed. The letters are written in Torah, Sefer Torah letters. And in the beginning of this siddur, they show you Aleph Beis letters in the way Sefer Torah is written. And they show you the word neshama, nun shin mem he. And in the letters of the neshama means a soul. Neshama means your soul, right? It's the generic word for soul. What are the 2 main letters in neshama? 2 main letters. The middle 2 letters. What is the middle 2 letters? Shin mem. What does shin mem spell? Shame. Shame means a name. So your neshama is described or is activated or is just has a name, because in the word neshama is the word shame. So that's why in my siddur it has the word neshama, and they tell you to do a mind trick, to put your own name, scatter your name. Let's say your name is Sarah. This is a hard thing to do if you're not a meditator, but not that I can say I do it, but it's a hard thing to do. Look at the word neshama, nun shin mem hey. Then between the nun and the shin, then put your name Sarah in those letters. Scatter them in. Between Sarah has 3 letters, right? So in the 3 spaces of the word neshama, between the nun and the shin and the mem and the hey, put the word Sarah, and look at that, and that will strengthen this neshama of Sarah. If you have 5 letters, so it's an exercise in recognizing that your neshama has a shame, and that's what your name is. And that's why I'm going to say now a very hard thing, which I myself and my family sadly don't always keep this. And it's really annoying that I myself don't even keep this. And it's weird and it's awkward for me too, but I'm going to have to try. Try not to use nicknames. I know it's hard. If you're calling your kid Chani her whole entire life, now you're going to say, Chana Bela or whatever. She's going to say, what, why, what? At least once a week on Shabbos, call every child and every person in your family by their full Hebrew name. Because that's the neshama. Why do I do that? My own son, I call him by his nickname for his whole life. If I would call him his full name now, he would look at me like I'm crazy. All right, when you daven for them, you daven their full name. When you say their name, when you daven for them, you say the full name. But it's important. I know it's hard, but at least once a week, someone should call you your full name. It's an interesting thing to try to tackle this now. And when they do, it sounds weird sometimes. But when I tell the ladies, when we learn a shir in names, so now we're one chabura. We're 40 women now on this year, and it's going to go out to a lot of people, Baruch Hashem. So, and by the way, this is in your zchus, Tzipi and Anita and Joanne, Reb Silber zchus, that this year went out a lot and people got a lot of benefit from it, Baruch Hashem. So kol hakavod, tizku l'mitzvot, and for everybody who comes. So now we're a chevra here, okay? So now Tzipi, I'm not going to call you Tzipi, I'm going to call you Tzipora, and you're not going to feel weird about it because we're now a chevra, and we know this rule. The rule is it's good every once in a while to call the full Hebrew name, not Debbie but Zevora, not Shani but Shoshana. Not Sarah, but Sarah. Look at that. My first grandchild, 4 years old, calls her Safta Naomi. Naomi, not Naomi. Look at that. That holy child knows to say your name completely. Cool. Okay. Anyway, because the letters are powerful. So could you imagine? Let's say you take a vitamin. You take a multi. So multi has all the vitamins in it, right? Let's say you cut it in half. And you only take half of it. So why? You want all the vitamins. You don't want half of it. And I know it's true that big tzaddikim, I know many great tzaddikim, and they give their kids nicknames. And everybody in the family has nicknames. And okay. But when they daven for their kid, or when they call, they want to be serious, or when they just want to give the bracha on Friday night, they'll say the whole name. So that's a good time to do it. When you're giving a bracha, you say the whole name. Whether you're giving a bracha from distance or from close, because every letter of the Hebrew name is giving you power. Now you might say that's such an abstract. It is. It's very abstract. It's a very mystical type of an energy. It's not a concrete energy. It's a very mystical energy, but we see it over and over again in Chumash. For example, who is the most who had the hardest time with her infertility in Chumash Bereishis? Rachel Imenu. Why? Because it's true. Sarah Imenu got a promise. She knew. And Rivka only suffered for 20 years. But neither of them, okay, Sarah had a little bit of a problem, a pain, not to minimize any of their pain. Their pains, each one of their pains was acute. But Sarah, it's true, she had Hagar, who had a child, so that was very hard for her. But look at Rachel Imenu. She was one of 4 wives, and everybody's having babies except for her, and she didn't get a promise. Not only she didn't get a promise that she would have a child from God, Sarah Imenu got a promise from God. Rivka Imenu got a promise from God. Rachel Imenu didn't have that promise, because there are other women who were able to bring forth the tribes. Not just that, but Rachel Imenu went through the whole thing of, is she a valid wife? Because, Leah and was given, even though she instituted that, or she created it and went along with it. But the bottom line is that they knew that 2 sisters shouldn't be married to a man at the same time. That's why Rachel Imenu died as soon as they came into Eretz Yisrael, because they kept the Torah in Eretz Yisrael. So as soon as she came in, she had to die because she was the second wife. So what did Rachel do in order to help her own self? She took Bilhah. Why did she take Bilhah and give her to Yaakov Avinu? Because Bilhah has 2 hays in her name. Leah has a hay, Zilpah has a hay, Bilhah has 2 hays, and Rachel has no hay. And we know we were taught by Hashem that the letter hay is a letter of fertility, because Avram and Sarah had to get a hay. Both of their names needed to have a hay in order to have a child. So Rachel doesn't have a hay, and Bilhah has 2 hays. Bet, her name is spelled Bet Lamed Hey. Bet, by the way, is the first letter of the Torah. Lamed is the final letter of the Torah, and 2 hays. It's a very good name. We don't use that name a lot, but I have precious students named Bilhah. So what did Rachel Imenu do? She said to Yaakov Avinu, please marry Bilhah, and I will share one of her hays. In other words, she has 2 hays. I have none. So by my giving you Bilhah, it's as if I took a hay from her name and put it onto my name. Now, how esoteric and mystical is that? That's very, very non-concrete. But it worked. In other words, it was an avod, it was a tefillah, it was a acknowledgement of the power of the letters of the Aleph Beis. Chazal tell us that everything is really just letters. Did anybody have the misfortune to see the movie Matrix? So Matrix. So years and years ago, now I'm thinking maybe, I don't know how many years ago, wait, I'll tell you, actually. Maybe in 1990, that's a long time ago, that's 30 years ago. So I told you that I saw that movie Matrix, not in a movie theater, I don't go into a billion other movie theaters, but I had a group of girls who I was teaching, and they wanted me to explain to them the movie Matrix. It had just come out, and they said it was very spiritual. They want me to explain it to them. They know there's a big meaning to it. And I said to them, I don't watch movies. As soon as I said I watched Matrix, 2 ladies got off the shir. Okay, now one came back on again. Forgive me, I'm confessing. So I said to them, my students, I don't watch movies. In those days, we had such a thing called a VCR machine, or is that what it's called? A big giant machine. You plopped it in this thing, a big, I forgot what you call it even, that big cassette thing. Anyway, we watched Matrix. I didn't understand it at all. I had to stop every 2 minutes and say, who's that guy? Who's that? Because Baruch Hashem, I hadn't watched movies in many, many years. So forgive me if this is gonna sound really, really terrible. Forgive me, all of you people who this is going to insult. But there was 2 guys, the good guy and the bad guy in the Matrix. And to me, they both looked like tall, skinny non-Jews. I couldn't see the face. I couldn't figure out who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, because they looked to me the same. And I kept stopping the movie saying, who was that? Was that the good guy or that was the bad guy? And the kids were laughing because they thought it was, see people getting off the thing now, telling stories about movies. Anyway, in that movie, The Matrix, he shows how really all of creation is just a string of letters and numbers and formulas and computer things, and the genius of that is that it's true. He was just making up a movie, or a she, I don't know, now they were 2 he's that became 2 she's, I think, whatever. But the idea was that all of reality, what you see, is formulas and letters. Okay, that is true. That's how Hashem made the world. However, each of these letters created a world or created an energy. So look at the word Yisrael. All of us are Yisraelim. We're all Yisrael. Yisrael means Yashar El, going straight to God. That's what Yisrael means. So so our nation is called Bnei Yisrael because our focus is and our job is to teach the world how to go Yashar, to straight to Hashem, to Aleph Lama, to Hashem. Also, Shir El. So Yashar is rearranged that. Israel is Yud Shin Resh, Aleph Lamed. So rearrange Yud Shin Resh, you get Shir. Shir El. Is that who we're saying today for the Shir? Is that who we're saying the Lili Nishmas? Okay, but this is Nancy's father. Nancy, if I told you, ladies, next year you have to write your Hebrew names, your full Hebrew name, so we can say your full Hebrew name. So Yisrael means the song of God. That's what we are. We are the songs of God. Okay, there's another way of looking. So you're looking at the letters of your name. And at this point, you don't really know them so well, but you know that any of the letters that are in God's name that you have in your name elevate you. So a Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey, those are God's primary letters. So if you have in your name a Yud and a Hey or a Vav or a Phi or a Hey, that's great. That means you have a godly energy to your name. If you have Aleph Lamed like Ilana, Eliana, Daniela, Eliyahu, Betzalel, all of those, Eliezer, all of those Aleph Lamed, that's God's name. That's good. If you have a Yud and a Hey, okay, we said that. Any of the combination of God's names, Hashem has a name called Tzivakot. So if you have, like Tzivia, we have, Yal Tzvi is on, that's from
Is that,
Tzivakot.
excuse me, is that with a kuf or a kaf? Tzivakot.
With a kuf.
Kuf.
No. It's with an aleph. Right? It's Siva Ot. Right? That's Hashem's name, right? Hashem Svaot, we say. So
Tziva'ot.
right. So I just said it like that because we don't want to say God's name like we say Kel.
Oh, I see.
Like
Okay.
Yal
That's
Tzvi,
why
you
I
have
asked you,
Hashem's
because
name
it
in it.
didn't
You have,
sound proper.
right. You have Hashem's name. There's the Tzaddik Bet of the Tzvakot, and the Yud K is, right? It's a very, very strong name, even though it's also a Tzvi, but it's also Hashem's name. So any of the letters of Hashem's name in your name is a very good thing. Aleph, any Alephs in your name is Elokim, right? Aleph, even if you don't have Aleph Lamed, if you have the Aleph, it's Elokim, etc. So those are good names. I mean, every name is a good name, but it gives you an extra boost. Now, we said before about initials, the first letter, the last letter. So we'll talk, and since we didn't learn the letters themselves, but I just want to show you how to analyze your name. If you have a name like Chana, the primary letter of Chana is a chet, because it's the first letter. The first letter of your Hebrew name is the strongest energy that you have. If you have two Hebrew names, then you have two strongest letters or two strongest energies. So Chana Leah has a chet and a lamed. Those are the strongest letters, the strongest energies. And by the way, you can also look at those as initials, and that's the word chal, chet, lamed. Okay, let's put that on the slide for a second. Just the first letter is the strongest letter of your name. The last letter is a power that you have, but you have to, it's hidden. Means you have that power, but you don't recognize it and you're not utilizing it. So look at the last letter of your Hebrew name or the last two letters of your Hebrew name and know that you have the energy of that letter, whatever it is. Oftentimes it's a hey in girls' names. And you're not activating, you're not utilizing it enough, but you have it. It's like a hidden talent that you now can utilize. You can use it now. You can pull out of it because it's there. It's in your name, so you have it. You just haven't been paying attention to it. The middle letter or letters, if you have an even number, if you have an odd number, like Chana has a nun as the middle letter. If you have Devora, that's 5 letters, so you have a Vav as the middle letter. So an odd number letter name is 1 letter middle. One is the middle letter. That's your balance. That's the letter that you need to hold on to when you get a little bit off balance and you just want to balance yourself. That's the letter of balance. If you have an even number, like what? Like tikva. We have 3 tikvas that we're davening for. There are 3 tikvas that need refuah shlema. There's a Sarah tikva, there's a tikva, there's a, I think, what's the other one's name is? I forgot, Abigail tikva. Anyway, tikva has a kuf and a vav as the middle letters. So 2 letters together are balancing. That's the balance. And what does it mean, the balance? It means when you need to achieve balance because you feel that you're off, or it's what balances you. Like, for example, the name Rachel. Rachel, the letter, the chet, is the balancing letter. So you have to learn what a chet is and know that that's the part, the energy of the letter chet is what will make you feel secure. Balance is also security. So now if you have 2 names, that's why it's good to have 1 name. So you're going to focus on 1, but if you have 2 names, you're going to do this with 2 ideas, 2 names. Think about some of your kids. Think about some of your kids and some of their names, and see if you can identify that the first letter of their names. Oh, look, Daniela. What's the name? Amatza? I don't know what that name is.
Amsa.
Amsa, like Chazak ve'ematz, to be strong.
So you know that book that you don't recommend using, the names book?
Yeah.
The English is Caroline, and I was named after a Caroline.
Oh, okay. Okay. So,
So I don't know really much more than that.
Yeah, okay. Maybe it's not even a name, we can ignore it, but maybe not. Okay. So anyway, look at one of your kids and see if you can. Now listen, the name of the person is the soul of the person. The soul of the person does not always manifest in the personality. That's a very, very big teaching. When we're learning the elements, we see that sometimes the soul is not always, you don't always see the soul. So it's not always manifesting in the person. But with little kids, oftentimes it does. So look at one of your little kids and see what their middle letter is, and see if that's what they need to feel comfortable and balanced and grounded and secure. I'm thinking now about one of my grandchildren, and I'm looking at her middle letter, and it's absolutely what she needs to feel security. And again, you need to learn what the Aleph Beis letters are. So,
wait, so it's if you have 4 letters,
then it's a 2-letter root.
the 2 middle letters.
2 middle letters, and you want to also figure out if those 2 are Naomi. So Naomi, right? Nun, Ayin, Mem, Yud, right? So your 2 middle letters of Naomi is Aleph, as Ayin Mem. Now, what is Ayin Mem? Ayin Mem means the nation. Just look at Naomi, our first Naomi, and how her whole life was dedicated to the Jewish nation. But you could also look at the letters by themselves. But yeah, your 2 middle letters are Ayin Mem, and then the Sarah you have the Resh. By the way, just to show you how to play with this. So your middle letter of Sarah is a Resh, and then Naomi is Ayin Mem, and when you put that together, you make a word called Ra'am. Ra'am means thunder. So are you a thunderous person?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Word.
Okay. So now you see, I opened up a Pandora's box because now we have 40 people, and everybody wants me to analyze the name. And we could do that. I'm telling you, when Mashiach comes, we're going to all sit around and we'll analyze the names. Well, maybe you come with Rebbe Silber to Eretz Yisrael. We'll have a Shabbaton, or we'll have a day, and we'll just go around and analyze names. Okay, so again, that is based on looking at the Aleph Beis letters of your name and knowing what those letters are. There are very, very nice books on the Aleph Beis letters. Actually, I think Art Scroll or Feldheim has a book on the Aleph Beis letters. It's right in back of me. I can actually see it from I can see part of my bookcase from here. There are books on Aleph Beis letters. You could read them. I told you that Rabbi Mattisyahu Glazerson has a book. All of his books are on Aleph Beis letters. He has a lot of books on what the letters mean. And so you can analyze that. Also, Rav, on inner.org, Rav Yitzchak Ginsburg Shlita, on his website, he wrote the real book. He wrote a book on Aleph Beis letters. That's a very, very deep book. That was the first book I ever bought of his, and I have this. It's falling apart. I still use it, and it's a very, very complex, complicated book, but it's a genius book. And you can look on one of his students simplified. There's a page on every letter. So go on inner.org, INNER.org. That's Rav Yitzchak Ginsburg's website. Gal Einai. Maybe it's called Gal Einai. GALEINEI. And find his letters and just read about the letters. Take a screenshot. I don't know, print it out, and then think about the letters in your name. Okay. Because the Torah tells us that the letters are important.
Sorry, how do you spell the other one? Galenai, but the other one. You said a word before.
Inner.org.
Oh, inner. Thank you.
Inner. I'm saying it in American English. INNER.
I have a habit. I call all my children and grandchildren by both by all their names.
Good for you. That's a good bubby.
And everybody thinks I am crazy.
Okay, now you know that you're the right one. You've been doing the right
But
thing.
Mishagas, I do it, and one family has by the girls 2 names, and by the boys they had only each one name from their Zaydas. Mine was one of my father Yosef, and one was Yitzchak. And but all the others everywhere have 2 names, and I
Okay.
name them by their 2 names.
Good. You did a good job. I'm just now going to read all the questions. First of all, we're going to say the Shir Nishmas Fega Bas Avraham and Bela Miriam Bas Shmuel Zalman. Okay, I said about that. I said about that. Okay, we said Yitzchak. Okay, no, Sarah. Okay, adding a name. We're going to talk about adding a name next time. Maybe. Okay, let's see. Reza or Razel. Resh Yud Yud Zayin Lamed, or Resh Yud Yud Zayin Aleph, or Resh Yud Yud Zayin Hey, or Resh Yud Yud Zayin Ayin. You have to look on the ksuba, see how you spell that. Okay, answer that. Okay. Yeah, we said that. We said about the pasuk at the end of Shemona Esrei. Right? We said that. We talked about that. Yeah.
For my husband's name, they don't have it in the art scroll. His name is Rachamim.
Oh, nice. That's a beautiful name.
And a mem sofit at the end, but he doesn't have it at the art scroll.
So what? No heartbroken. You have a job to do now. You're going to look through the whole Tehillim. Start with Parak Kuf Yutes, and you're going to go through the whole Tehillim. I have a Tehillim. Actually, you know what, Miriam? I'll see if I can look for you. It's in the other room in my other bookcase. I have a Tehillim called the Tehillim of the Chidah. He took all the psukim in Tehillim and he wrote them in alphabetical order, so it's easy for me to look up all the ratios. I'll look up later, B'li Neder. You'll remind me.
Okay.
Okay, remind me and I'll.
My Hebrew name is Mariam. It's actually not Miriam, but everybody drove me crazy. Where did that name come? Where did it come from? I never heard of such a name. So I just tell everybody my name is Miriam, but it's not Miriam. It's Mariam. Mem resh yud mem, but a patach at the bottom, not a chirik.
Okay.
Mariam Dina Dvora is my name.
Okay.
Robertson, can I ask you, could I ask you just to tell me again about Rachel taking Bila because of the 2 hays? I didn't write it down.
Okay. So I'll just say quickly that Rachel Imenu had no hay in her name. Hay is a letter of fertility for a woman. If you're having children, it's good to give a girl a name with a hay in it. A hay is a siman tov for fertility. It's not oh, 1 second. It's not like you can't have a baby without a hay. Of course you can, but it's good to have a hay in your name. That's only if you're still giving names to babies. If you don't have a hay in your name, it's fine. But a hay is a letter of fertility because it's the letter of the female. It's a letter of receiving and giving. It's a letter of malchus. The whole story about a hay. So Rachel didn't have a hay, and Bilhah had 2 hays. Bilhah was her half sister slash. It's only it is for female fertility generally. even though Abraham also got a hey, but that's for another reason. Anyway, it's female fertility, a hey. So Bilhah had two hays in her name. So when Rachel Imenu allowed Yaakov Avinu or made that shidduch between, she brought another wife into the family, she did it with the intention that he could have a child from Bilhah, and that would be on the credit of Rachel, but also that Rachel would benefit from the Bilhah's hay in her name, and it would help her to have her own child, which it did.
I
Or
understand. Yeah.
eventually we know that Rachel Imenu had 2 children.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Who else has a question?
I have a question. It says that you told me to look up in the Reish, in Kuf Yutes, in Kuf Nun Vav. It says Rachamecha Rabim. That's the only reference to Rachamim.
Okay, you speak to me later, Miriam, and we'll look for Rachamim.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else has a question just on what we talked about today? Okay, so
I want to ask you, because my family were not secular, but they were just, just lit candles on a Friday. They weren't religious people. And my father said to me, he's still alive, thank God, the name Sharon is not a Hebrew name, but I thought it was. It's to do with the land, isn't it?
correct. The name Sharon is a place in Eretz Israel.
Yes.
So is that your Hebrew name, or do you have an additional Hebrew
I
name?
don't think I was given a Hebrew name.
Uh-huh.
We
So
weren't
then
given-
you can have the word Sharon. You can have the
Yes.
name Sharon,
I thought I could, yes.
and then you're connected to Eretz Israel.
Yes. I did think that, but he said it wasn't. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So let me go. If
Did
nobody
you
else has,
address, somebody asked the question about a hay being fertility only for,
I think I
Well-
addressed it. A hay is fertility for a woman.
not, and for no, so meaning not for a man, like if a man's got
Not
a hay.
necessarily. We don't have it doesn't we don't have that tradition that you add a hey. I'll tell you why. Because the hey is the letter of receiving, and the man is the giving. So he's not the receiver, he's the giver. Why did Abraham get a hey? Because Hashem said, the Medrash says that first Avram just means an elevated father, but Avraham means Av Hamon Goyim, right? So the hey added something else to him in that he became the prince of the world as opposed to just a great man in his own private life. So that hey had a different significance. And by the way, who got the Yud? We know who got the Yud. Yehoshua got that letter Yud, right? Because Yehoshua's name originally was Hosea. And then Sarah Imenu, when she lost her Yud, even though she exchanged it for 2 hays, but the letter Yud was a little bit upset. And so Hashem said, don't worry, I'm going to put you on someone else's name. And he gave it to Yehoshua. So what do you see from this story? Oh, Sarah Nechama, good. I'm glad you put your name on. So what do you see from this story is that the letters are not what we think. They're not cold energies, but they're actual sentient beings, if we could say such a thing. And that the Yud was upset, and it felt better when it was put into Yehoshua's name. And not just that, but David HaMelech got a Yud added to his name, and Yosef HaTzadik got a Hey added to his name. He's sometimes called Yehosef. So you see that these letters Hashem puts in Tanakh, Hashem puts onto people the letters when they need a particular strength. Hashem himself adds letters onto their name in Chumash and in Navi. So
Like
now,
Yonatan and Yehonatan as well.
Yehonatan and Yonatan.
Is there any other way to spell Dahlia besides?
Dalid Lamed Yud Hey.
Okay, that's it. Okay. Okay, Dal.
Dahlia is Dalid Lamed Yud Hey. And that means, now listen, it can mean a lot of things, Dahlia, right? Okay, so listen, I just want to talk quickly. Somebody asked a quick question about changing your name or adding a name. Changing a name or adding a name is a very, very major experience, and it should not be done lightly, and it should not be done unless a very, very qualified Rav is asked, and I'll answer you 1 second, Nancy. No, me, Sarah. It's the whole name. Chai is the whole name because the whole it only has 2 letters, so it's the whole name. Like Tal also has such a thing. That's the whole name.
Yes.
A person who's adding a name or changing a name has to do that with a qualified Rav. And this Rav has to be like this. It has to be someone that is very, very great, that is experienced in the whole subject of names, and that is of your Eidah. Like if you're Sephardi, you have to go to a Sephardi. If you're Ashkenazi, you have to go to an Ashkenazi. Don't go to a Sephardi Mekubal if you're an Ashkenazi Litvish to ask about names, because that's going to have a whole different hashkafa. A name change or a name added has to be done in a very serious manner, with a very, very big tzaddik, a tzaddik, a posek, somebody who does this, somebody who has experience in this particular field of names. One of my students years ago, I like to call everyone by their Hebrew name. That's my general rule. I like to call everyone by their full Hebrew name. And if I don't call you by your full Hebrew name, it's because I just don't know it. But this particular student of mine, she will actually listen to the shir later because it goes out on a certain group that she's on. So she'll know who she is, but I'm not going to say her name. I couldn't say her Hebrew name. Her Hebrew name, when I first heard her Hebrew name, it struck me as being a very, very not good Hebrew, not good word in Hebrew. It's not even a name, it's like a word. And my first association with that word was unpleasant. And so I called her English name, whatever, Elizabeth. I called her English name all the years, and she was really annoyed with me. How come you call everybody their Hebrew name? And I tried, but her Hebrew name has one of the meanings of her Hebrew name is not a good word. So I couldn't do it. Anyway, she got married, and Baruch Hashem, a wonderful tzaddik of a husband, and they weren't having kids. And I said to her, it's your name. You got to go and get your name. She was so annoyed with me. What do you mean? It's a good, whatever. So anyway, she went and she changed her name. She went to a big tzaddik, a big rebbe in America. He changed her name right after they popped out a bunch of kids. Not any effort whatsoever.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. Yeah.
A great
and he
story.
said, wait, I got to read this about, because I know Reb Chaim doesn't like the name Shira. And he said would you name your kid Masora or Parv? I know Reb Chaim Kanievsky is clearly does not like the name Shira. Did you, by the way, call him and speak to him directly, or you sent a message and you got a message back? Just curious.
My husband went there, I think, at the time with someone who had a connection with him. So it was through someone, but
Did he go in and directly ask?
He was in the room when he said it, yeah.
Did he hear him say these words, or somebody translated these words?
No, because and then he even gave other suggestions of a name. He said, "What? So if it's Parashah's thing, you would call it." I'll double check with him. I don't know. He was in the room. He said
how old is this daughter?
She is 7.
Uh-huh. Yeah, he doesn't like the name Shira. That's what we all know that.
Okay. It's
Okay.
interesting because when we used to go and visit Reb Kanievsky or Shalom, and we've asked a couple of times questions, like people wanted to know their names. But then I realized like the Sfardim couldn't ask Rav Chaim about names because it was like, change it. No. Ask your Rav. We'll go ask your basic.
Right. Right. Okay, next week we'll talk a little bit about the gematria. We'll try to work out the numerical value of your name, the gematria of your name. It's important because it's a very, very, it has a lot. We'll just continue this until we run out of patience. Next week we'll talk about gematrias of your name. Try to look a little bit into the letters in the website so they can. And okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.